First, let's set the scene, because when one thinks the DRC, one thinks that things are changing quite dramatically from a political perspective, and red tape is not as evident as it was before. But we also hear of experiences where it's still a very challenging environment, particularly in the mining and energy sector.
Well, I think I must say, in Africa, doing business is always going to be a challenge, especially considering the way people are looking at the world and doing business. The world has become, a global village, and so people always assume that you're going to go into a particular country and it's all going to be the same. But unfortunately, with some of these countries and some of the African countries, it's not quite, as easy as that. You go into countries like the DRC, and they still have challenges on the technology side. Your communications are not really up to scratch as yet. So those things will pose a challenge naturally for one who's looking at going to set up an operation in the Congo, to set up a business, or set up a mine. You have exposure to the early phases of the mining industry in particular. One would say that the regulatory aspect, it's still a difficult one to deal with. How does a multinational company, a foreign company, deal with those regulatory hurdles? Well, I come in from the point of view, or I come in from the angle of the manufacturer. We are original equipment manufacturers. We make the rock drills, or loosely called, your jackhammer, the tools that are used to actually make the penetration into the ground, to make the shaft sinking, to actually come up with. This is after the exploration phase? Yes, after the exploration. We'll start off with the exploration. From the exploration, we'll then identify that there's mineral, and mineral is worth, mining, and then we start sinking the shaft. Then we provide the machinery that sinks that shaft. So from that angle, one is looking at organizations that have done the exploration. They're now looking at purchasing the equipment. From what there is on the ground, there's not many guys who have established in the Congo. Most guys have actually went and set up operations in Zambia, or set up operations in South Africa, and are trading from out of South Africa going into the Congo. And you manufacture this equipment in South Africa and then export it into? Yes, all the equipment is manufactured in South Africa, in Roodepoort, and then is exported worldwide. We supply countries in Canada, in South America, all over the world, basically. With regards to building relationships in the DRC within the mining and energy sector, which parties do you need to ensure that you do build strong relationships with, to ensure that the community around the mining area is also going to benefit significantly from that resource? For me, I think the way we've done it is we've tried to identify who the key players are. Like in any African country, you need to know exactly who the government of the day are, who are the people who are controlling each particular state or each particular province that you're operating in. For example, in Katanga, you need to know who the governor of Katanga is and understand what his strategy is, because each person has got a strategy for the province that they're operating in. And then you dovetail your initiatives or your strategy, your growth strategy into that governor's plan. Is there a problem when we do see a change in governance within each province, and then you have to change strategy going forward? We've got elections, as I mentioned. Is it very important to ensure that you do start mutating relative to the policy changes if that occurs? No, I haven't noted that. From talking to the people, it looks like the people of the Congo are generally united in terms of what they want to do. They're looking for progress. They want to move forward. So in terms of the strategy broadly, it's all going forward. So it won't be much of a change or much of realigning your strategies with the coming in of a new government. Are there any particular provinces that are just easier to work with relative to others? Well, I wouldn't say easier to work with. I would probably say ones where there is more scope for the kind of work that we're doing. We look at I would look at the towns and say, if you look at the capital, if we're in Kinshasa, the capital of the Congo, there's not much going on in terms of mining. Most of the mining is happening in the Katanga province. So you'd go in there and identify the role players, as I've said. You'd go in there and attend these mining shows where you'll see all your key players. The guys from the cobalt industry will come out. Guys from the copper industry will come out. You will meet all those miners in one place and be able to converse and be able to actually, come up with plans to set up, supply facilities for them. With regards to beneficiation, you mentioned cobalt and copper. Of course, DRC notoriously known for those two resources, and very cyclical resources as well. Beneficiation, do you find that foreign companies are starting to embark on this quite extensively, that they want to start beneficiating? And do you think there's going to be extensive policy changes to include this in the mandate? I think there's going to be extensive changes, you're right, because as you're aware, the beneficiation is for example, not for example, but is the buzzword of the moment. And most people are actually gravitating towards that and ensuring that everything that they do when they go into an operation, when they go into a country, has got that aspect, covered as well.
With regards to corporates wanting to delve into the DRC, what is the first step that we need to take? We were talking offline a little earlier, and
Yes.
you're also alluding to the fact that you see a lot of people at the airports and they haven't gotten the right paperwork to head into the country. So, of course, a lot of challenges because we are a very diverse African continent, 54 countries, and a lot of different rules across the board.
I think the first step is to have an understanding of the environment that you're going into, have an understanding of the people, have an understanding of the cultures, have an understanding of what business is about in that country, because it's not all quite the same as you wave through the 54 countries in Africa.